Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Wallace. I just wanted to do a few of the questions that you had for homework. This is related to the factor market. There were a couple of free response questions, and I looked over a lot of the work that you did, and for the most part, you all did pretty well on the questions, but there are a couple of some of the questions, the free response questions at the very end get to be a little bit challenging. So I'm just going to do the petsall question. This was an AP question. I forget what year. I want to say it was like 2008 or 2011 or something like that. But the question reads, petsall Corporation is a profit maximizing monopolist. It sells a patented rabies vaccine for pets and earns economic profit. So the very first part that you were asked to do, and everybody did well on this, was just to draw the monopoly. So we've got our demand curve and our MR curve, our MC curve, and because this is a firm that's making a profit, if we have our quantity that's here and we note, our profit right here, okay, something like that. This is the monopoly's price. You can shade the area of economic profits. For Part B, the question is, assume that petsall hires its production workers in a perfectly competitive labor market at the wage rate of $20 an hour. State the marginal conditions. Some of you had a question of what the marginal conditions are. This is going to be this simple. It's going to be MRP is equal to MRC. Marginal conditions will always be, marginal revenue equals marginal cost, or in this case, marginal revenue product equals marginal revenue cost. For Part B, 2I, draw the graph that shows the labor supply and demand curve for petsall and indicate the profit maximizing quantity of labor. They don't ask us here to draw the side-by-side graph, so we don't necessarily have to do that. We just have to do the supply and demand curves are for petsall, so you want to do a downward sloping MRP, okay? And you're going to do the wage. If the wage is $20 an hour, we know that the market would be setting that wage, and the firm is going to see an MRC of $20, okay? And ultimately, the quantity that the firm would hire in terms of employees would be quantity Q. And that is the profit maximizing quantity of labor. If we actually have the market wage rate fall to $15 an hour, okay, what would happen is the MRC, essentially the firm's supply curve, would shift downward, okay, for the $15. The question becomes what happens, and this is CI, what happens if we have the supply of labor to petsall, and we're showing this on the graph, right? But the supply curve has decreased, right? There's actually a shift downward in the supply because the curve went from $20 of the wage to $15. What happens to the amount of labor that petsall would hire, we can see based on the difference between Q and Q1. So the supply of labor actually decreases, but for 2I for Part C, the quantity of workers will increase. Okay, and then for Part D, okay, if we're looking at Part D, D says, given the lower wage rate, indicate how each of the following would change, okay? So if we have total fixed cost, so we have a lower wage rate of $5, an hour, what happens to total fixed costs? There's no change, right? There's no change because labor is a variable cost. It's not a fixed cost. And so if it's an hourly wage, there's no change at all to fixed costs. However, in the product market, your marginal cost curve is going to decrease because this is a variable cost change, right? We would expect in the product market for the marginal cost curve to decrease, so marginal cost is going to decrease, okay? The one that was the trickiest is what happens to the product price. The product price is going to decrease. Why will that occur? That will occur because the marginal cost curve in the product market, so I'll draw that like over here in this box. Remember, you have the product market. In this case, this is a firm that is a monopoly, right? And I can actually use the monopoly graph that I have up here, you know, forgetting some of this right here. Kind of go to the, kind of get rid of that, sorry. If we go to the monopoly graph up here, the marginal cost curve decreasing, right? The price is now going to be like the quantity, the profit maximizing quantity was perhaps say Q1. Now the profit maximizing quantity might be greater. But because that quantity is greater, the price is actually going to be lower. Before the price was here at P, say PM or P1, now the price is going to be a little bit lower. There might still be a profit, right? But there may not, and of course the ATC would also decrease if we had to show that we could. Okay, so price decreases and MC decreases in the product market, total fixed cost, no change. And that is based on just understanding that we have a change in variable costs, okay? Alrighty, so I'll see if I can do one more of these, and this is the petsall problem.